Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fix My Fees podcast, where merchant services is so boring. I bring on interesting people, pick their brains, and hopefully you can learn something from that. I am your host, Tavius Washington, and today we are joined by somebody that it feels like is a organizational development pioneer, right? Who has spent 3 decades helping global leaders and individuals achieve their best. And as the founder and CEO of Star 360 Feedback, it's more like he really has the impact on like doubling people's impact, right? You know what I mean? When it comes to professional training. And a lot of the stuff that he does is like incredible when it comes to, what was it, the nonprofit you have with Real Victory? Well, let me bring him in, ask him directly, right? Please welcome my guest, Bruce Bennett. How you doing today, Bruce?
Good, Tavius. How are you today? Thank you for
great.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on the call. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and it's good to have you here too. So one of the things that kind of stuck out to me is like what you were doing was groundbreaking and having permanent effects, right, for leaders. And I know a lot of the things that, you know, people that are leaders of organizations, teams, or whatever, they're trying to like find new ways or do things, but they're always kind of just even imposter syndrome and things get kind of mess up with what they're doing. So what is it that you're actually doing with people, with professionals on a day-to-day that is helping them get these groundbreaking results?
So in the learning and development space, it's a really trendy field. There's always a new book. There's always a new technique. But if you go back and you research those techniques, they all root back to basics that were developed 15, 20, 30, 40, even 50 years ago. And what we've been trying to do is cut through the trends and get to the core principles that people can implement themselves. Right. So one of the basic things that we've looked at is the idea that you've got to have an expert to help you improve. I mean, leaders became leaders because they're capable of understanding problems and solving problems. And then when you say, okay, when it comes to personal development, you have to bring in an expert to solve that problem for you. And that's a little bit of the message in the learning and development field. And so what we've been trying to do is figure out how to tap into the core skills that leaders develop to become leaders, and then help leaders use their own skills to be able to develop. We use the phrase developmentally self-reliant. We like to help leaders get to a point where they can develop themselves, and the resources that are out there are helpful to them, but they don't absolutely have to rely on the resources out there to improve their skills.
I want to dive into that, but I feel like a big portion of that is understanding how we even got here, right? So how did you even get into deciding like this is what you wanted to do and actually helping people create their own mechanisms for self-development? How did that even happen?
So I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's been my goal since I was a little kid. I started businesses in elementary school and junior high school and high school. I received my MBA, and after I received my MBA, I started my own business, and it didn't work out. So then I went to work for a consulting company, and we had a contract at Ford. And our original job at Ford was to fix the frontline leaders. And so we went in, we did studies, we went back to Ford, and we said, well, the frontline leaders learn how to become leaders by watching their superintendents.
Right.
And so we did a study with the superintendents, and we came back to Ford and said, you know, the superintendents, they developed their leadership skills by watching their area managers. And then we went back through and did the same kind of study and came back and said, you know, it's really the executive committee. And if you really want to have an impact, you really need to start working with helping the executive committee develop leadership skills they can model and teach all the way down the organization. We were invited at one point to go into a Ford assembly plant, and the assembly plant, I was invited to meet with their HR manager and a whole bunch of other organizational development professionals. And in the meeting, the HR manager started off by saying, we've spent 3 years and $3 million implementing one of the most popular training programs in the country. And we haven't moved the needle on any specific measurable in the building. For me, that was stunning, right? because it was an extremely popular program. And so I went to the HR leader and I said, can I just go wander through the building and talk to people? And they said, sure, take your I essentially had free reign, and I wandered through the building. I talked to people at all levels, and I said, so how did you like the training? And they said, the training was amazing. It changed my life. It was great. It was incredible. And I said, where do you use the training? And they go, I use the training with my wife. I use the training with my kids. I use the training at church. I use the training in my community. And I said, so do you use the training at work? And they would say, no, we don't use it here. It's not accepted here. People don't necessarily believe in the concepts. And so it helped me realize there's this disconnect between what people learn in training and how people apply those things. So I kind of shifted my focus to, let's spend some time studying what it takes to get people to apply skills. Learning it is not enough. There's that if someone learns a skill, that they'll automatically use it because they know it. And this kind of proved to me that that's not the case. There's a whole group of other factors that need to be in place in order for someone to learn a skill. In fact, as we did the studies, we recognized that there are people who have skills who choose not to use those skills in different settings. And so helping people understand that they're making that choice and why they're making that choice and how that choice impacts their business has kind of been a key focus. Another key focus, as we started looking at what it takes to help people implement skills that they learn so that they can improve their performance, we stepped back and we looked at the idea that the behaviors that you have are driven by the beliefs that you have. And a lot of the training organizations, a lot of the training programs focus on training those behaviors. So we discovered there's this really simple formula, and that is your beliefs drive your behaviors drive your results. And when people want to change their results, typically what they do is they step back and they try and change their behaviors. Like if you want to lose weight, the first thing you do is you exercise more and you manage your diet, right?
Right.
But you have beliefs about exercise that caused you not to exercise earlier, or you have beliefs about your diet that caused you to eat the foods that you were eating earlier. And over time, those beliefs overpower the new behaviors. And so when you have old beliefs and you have new behaviors and you put them against each other, most of the times the old beliefs over time will overcome the new behaviors and the old habits will come back. So when we are looking at trying to help people understand how to implement the skills that they use, we recognize that looking at behaviors is important, and also helping people go back and kind of examine the beliefs that are driving those behaviors is incredibly important. So that starts with self-awareness. People need to understand their beliefs. We like to describe it this way. We have beliefs. If we have a window that's in front of us, we write our beliefs on that window. And some beliefs are written on with a whiteboard marker, and you can just take a cloth and wipe them off, right?
Right.
If I think, I need to take an umbrella today, and I open the door and it's sunny and shiny, I'm going to put my umbrella back. I'm not going to take it. Some beliefs are etched in so deeply into the glass that we don't even recognize them. We talk about those as being cultural beliefs. A lot of times, to recognize our cultural beliefs, what we have to do is go to a different culture where not everyone shares those beliefs, and all of a sudden our beliefs stick out really loudly. So we started looking at the idea of leadership development and how do we help people understand themselves well enough and recognize their beliefs well enough that they can have confidence in themselves and their ability to change. So we've spent 30 years looking at that, and we've had kind of for me, what's been just a really fun adventure. And I think we've developed some really good material around that area.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely like when you started talking about the beliefs and how it override, my mind went to, like even working out. The moment people think about working out, it's like, man, I have to do it 5 times a day. It has to be 2 hours long in order for you to lose weight, right? And if that's your belief and that's what you've believed for 30 years, it's really hard to convince yourself to continuously think that you're going to be able to work out for an hour a day, every day for the rest of your life, because that belief is like, that's hard work. It's impossible. It can't do that. So so when you're How are you working with people then? Do you do calls with them? Is there workshops? Like, how do you actually work with people to understand what it is that their beliefs are?
Well, there's actually, I'm split in two different areas. In the leadership development world, we organize and build 360 surveys. And the way a 360 survey works is we'll identify skills that an organization believes their leaders need to be proficient in order to succeed in that organization. And we'll put those into behavioral statements, and then the leader will take the survey about themselves, and then the leader's manager will take the survey about the leader. The leader's peers will take the survey about the leader. The leader's direct reports will take the survey about the leader. And then we put all this into a comprehensive report that says, here's how you think you're doing. Here's how the people all around you think you're doing.
Right.
And where there's agreement, it's really good news. Where there's agreement that their skills are strong, we can encourage people to use those skills more often. Right. When there's agreement that their skills need development, then everyone is aligned with helping the person develop those particular skills. The big challenge comes, and then when the person doesn't think they do something very well, but everybody else thinks they do it really well, that's actually really good news, because that's like, hey, just do this more often and you'll be more effective.
Yeah.
Right. And then the challenge comes when someone perceives that they do something really well and everyone else that works with them doesn't think they do it very well. And it's kind of a blind spot in their career. There's a lot of people who get caught in that, where all of a sudden something happens and they go, I didn't see that coming. I don't know why that happened to me. And so what we try to do with these types of surveys is increase their self-awareness and then help them focus in on an individual development priority and then use that development priority to improve over time. It's interesting because that's a tool that's been around for many years. It's been used very poorly in a lot of instances. And let me tell you what I mean by very poorly. A lot of organizations will use that and they'll only focus on the negative. So someone will take the 360 and they'll come back and they'll say, I can't believe that I'm this bad, because they only focus on those things that need to improve.
This is right.
Yeah. I actually had a neighbor who did this at his work with a different company. And I talked to him and I said, how did you feel about the results? And he said, to be honest, I'm ready to quit my job, because my results were so negative that I don't think I should work there anymore. So I looked at that and I went, okay, that's a complete failure of that system and process.
Right.
So when we do it, what we do is, the first thing we do is help people recognize their strengths and help them have the confidence that they can actually improve. I'll give you a quick example. We were hired by a national scientific organization to do this with their CEO. And their CEO, a Nobel Prize winning scientist, he's absolutely brilliant. Everybody recognizes that he's the smartest person in the room. And when they hired us, what they said was, no one will work with him because he's such a pain in the neck and he's so abrasive that it's a real problem having him as our CEO. So we did this survey with him and the results came back. His analytical scores were just, way off the top, as high as they could be. And his interpersonal scores were way at the bottom, as low as they could be. And I got to just sit down with him and go through the results with him. And I looked at his scores and I said, wow, it looks like you're really, really good at solving problems. And he said, I've got a Nobel Prize. I mean, I should be, right?
Right.
And I said, so let's look at this from the standpoint of your skills. What if you were to do an experiment? And he goes, I love experiments. And I go, okay, next time you go into a meeting, change your behavior and just be quiet and let people in the room talk and take notes of what happens. Would you be willing to do that? And he goes, yeah, I'll do that. And I said, okay. And then go in and each time you make a comment, just take a little note. Did you interrupt someone? Did you say something that was really strong? And then see how people react. And he said, this actually is going to be kind of fun for me. I can build this experiment. This is something that I can do. And so he went through and he built the experiments and he started watching how his behavior impacted other people, not because he wanted to be a soft, fuzzy person, but because he was using the strength that he had to better understand how to have more impact at work.
Right.
And so at the end of that, he looked at that and he said, I really do need to change the way I treat people. And here are the changes that I'm going to make, because he was able to figure it out using his own strengths. And so he was able to, originally his belief was, and it literally was, I'm the smartest person in the room. I don't need to change. And then when we took that strength of using his analytical problem solving ability to examine what was happening as a result and have him do it, then he came back and said, okay, yep, I'm on board. Let's see if we can make some adjustments here.
I like that. It's like it's weaponizing his strength for him to realize where his weakness is.
Yeah. We refer to it. We refer to it as self-guided discovery.
I like that though, because when someone tells you something, there is a difference between someone telling you the same thing that you come to your own conclusion about, right? If you feel you came up with the idea and you already know it, right? You're like, I know it, but I can't just tell you because you might not accept it. But if they think of it, they're like, I can fix this because I thought of this and I think it's a problem. So I do like that. Is that is that normally what you're trying to accomplish? Or is it that with certain people in certain situations, they need to kind of self-discover?
Well, what we're normally trying to accomplish is help people self-discover how to improve, and then help them identify the clear next steps to improve. So we do this directly for clients. We also do it with a lot of coaches and consultants, where coaches and consultants will build the survey mechanism for them. Sometimes they'll just use our survey mechanism and white label it in their name so it can help build their brand. But what it does is it opens the coaching and consulting relationship just a little bit more, because it makes the person they're coaching more self-aware. And it's not just the coach saying, hey, this is something you need to do. It's the coach saying, hey, if you look at all the data that we've collected from the people that you're working with, they're saying this is something that you need to do. So it adds credibility to the coach, right? And then, so some of the difficulties with this approach is they'll go through this approach, they'll take one of these surveys, and then they'll make a long list of things that they need to do to improve. And then they're overwhelmed and they're discouraged and they actually get frustrated and it becomes a negative experience.
Right.
So what we try to do is help them identify areas help them identify areas they can improve, and then prioritize one of those areas, and then walk them through a process of discovering what they need to do to change to improve those skills. And then once they've done that, repeat the process on another skill. So instead of creating a long list, trying to multitask, not succeeding at anything, that they're starting off with a lot of options. They pick one option, they go all the way through it until they succeed, and then they gain confidence that goes, oh, I can do this. This is good. Actually, this was kind of fun. I'll try it again. So then they go back and pick another one, right? And so we work with a lot of coaches and consultants to help give them the data and the format to be able to work through that with their coaching clients as well.
Yeah. Oh, so now that they've taken it, it's like they've learned it, they figured it out, they've done it, and they've seen the results. They can also use that in whatever they're doing for either their workmates, employees, or their clients.
Yeah. And we have a lot of coaches. We have a lot of coaches where when in their coaching engagement, they'll have the person that they're coaching take this survey, and then the coach will sit down with them and go through the results and then help them build their action plan. And it actually creates a stronger ongoing coaching relationship because they have a plan that the person is implementing, and they have a way to track their progress, and they have a way to get continual feedback to see if there's progress there. I know one of the biggest challenges in coaching that coaches share with us is how do they demonstrate their impact to others? And sometimes coaches will do one of these surveys at the beginning, and then they'll do one of these surveys like 6, 8, 12 months later, and they'll be able to say, look, I can document the improvement that this person has made. they've gone from this to this.
Okay. And how have you had someone who's come back, right, and told you about their experience? Like, hey, 6 months later, a year later, hey, man, this is like what's happened to me since then. Can you give us kind of case study stories?
Yeah. We actually, we get a lot of those because people are super excited about the growth that happens. And one of the things that they're excited about is that they were able to figure the process out and do the process from their own initiative. So another thing that we noticed in leadership development is organizations will spend money on training programs. They'll spend money on offsites. They'll spend money on workshops, and they focus on the event and then make sure that the event is absolutely stunning, amazing, and wonderful. And then they hope that the event will generate change long term. Well, the research is out there that shows that events have a very short-lived impact, that as time passes, the impact of the event gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Right.
So one of the things that this process does, though, is it helps people maintain that momentum over time. We actually just had a VP of a corporation come back and just say to us, this is actually just changed the direct trajectory of my career, because it's given me confidence in my ability to adapt and improve and adapt and improve and adapt and improve, which is what I need to do if I want to keep going up my career ladder. And part of it was she had done one of these surveys a year ago. She did the second survey, and the second survey, she was able to go into her boss and say, look, I've improved in all of these areas, and look at my comments, because the surveys include open-ended comments. And she would say, look at the comments from a year ago, and then look at the comments from today, and you can clearly see that skill has improved.
What is it that we miss? I know a lot of us think of ourselves as leaders, whether we're forced into it or whether we've grown into it, right? The leaders, what do you feel like people get wrong in the leadership space, or even just being a leader?
I think that's a really good question. I think one of the first things is we become overconfident, and as we become overconfident, we quit listening. And it's interesting, our overconfidence, and as we become overconfident and we quit listening, then that slows our progression down. So the ability to continually listen and understand what people are telling us is critical to being able to improve and being able to have a long-term impact. The ability to recognize our impact on other people, I think it becomes harder and harder as you move up the ladder to recognize the impact you have on people, because you're dealing with more and more people, and your time one-on-one is less and less.
Right.
If that makes sense. So, I'll never forget when I was at Ford, one of the vice presidents came in and did a get to know you meeting with all of the employees. And one of the employees asked him a question, and the vice president said, oh, I've got the answer to that question here in my briefcase, but I'm not allowed to share it with you yet. That hit the employees completely wrong, and all the goodwill that he had built just went completely out the window, right?
Yeah.
But he was unaware of that. He was completely unaware that that would be the case. I think the other thing is the idea that we need something really big in order to motivate change, when in actual fact, change is accomplished through very small, simple steps. And I'll give you
explain that a little bit more. I like that. I'm diving into that part. Well, can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. Most people, once their awareness is increased, once they're listening, once they're attuned, they kind of know what it is that they need to do.
Right.
But they're looking for something. I think as Americans, particularly, we love the idea of the magic pill that will come in and fix everything, right?
Yep.
We want a pill to fix all of our health problems, when in actual fact, changes to lifestyle will impact a lot of our health problems positively. So being able to recognize that it's just small improvements every day that actually develop our skills long-term, and it's being aware of those small improvements every day. So this is, we're going to go a slightly different direction to answer that question.
Let's do it.
Years ago, we were invited by the University of Alabama to put together a survey process to use with recovering homeless inner city crack cocaine addicts. And so this was before the internet was really that ubiquitous. This is back in the 1990s. So we built an automated cell phone process where they would give these recovering addicts a phone, and we would call them every 2 hours at random, and we would ask them a series of questions. And they did this study over 3 years. And at the end of the 3 years, I was talking to the researcher and I said, so, what did you learn? And were there any surprises? And she said, actually, the big surprise to us was that 50% of this population will relapse the first day they're back out on the street because they have no social support structure. Of the 33 people who participated in our study, only 6 people relapsed. And I said, wow, that's a stunning difference. How do you explain that? And she said, well, the anecdotal data we got from people all pointed to the phone calls. And they said that they like the idea of being connected to someone, that it interrupted their thought process and made them more aware of the decisions that they were making in the moment. It created a sense of accountability because they actually had to answer the questions about their behavior. And it communicated that someone actually cared enough about them to ask their opinion.
Yeah.
So we looked at that and we said, those are all coaching principles. What if we could automate that process? So we built an automated phone coaching process, and it's really, really simple. What happens is someone sets a goal, they break the goal down into tasks. And then they identify people that they would like to be on their support team, that matter to them, that they care about. And then our system reaches out to those people and invites them to leave a voicemail message. And then we ask the person that the service is for when they struggle the most. And then our system will either call or text them, they choose. And it will ask them how they're doing on their goal. It will ask them how they're doing on one of the tasks that they've done with their goal. And then it will deliver one of the voicemail messages that someone that loves them has recorded. And those little nudges make a huge difference, right, even though they're not directly tied to the goal. I have to share my favorite story. When we did this, we started trying to figure out how we test whether or not this actually has impact. So we decided that we would see if we could work with the criminal justice system. And we partnered with the criminal justice system, and we partnered with a university to do studies, random control trial studies about whether or not this had impact. One day, one of the researchers called me up and he was just giddy. And he said, Bruce, today you guys prevented a murder. And I just started laughing. And I said, wow, we do phone calls and texts. It's pretty ridiculous. And he said, no, let me tell you what happened. He said, John, he's a former LA gang member. He's recycled through the prison system 3 times. Yesterday, he got a message from a fellow gang member. He was in a halfway house, and he got a message at the halfway house from a fellow gang member telling him that his homeboy in the gang had been murdered by a rival gang member. And this morning, he snuck out to take revenge and kill the shooter. While he was in transit, our system called him and he answered it so he would have an alibi for what he was about to do. It asked him about his goal, it asked him about his task, and then it played a message from his mother. And his mother just said to him, John, you have 2 beautiful daughters who've grown up most of their life without you. Don't do something stupid that will keep you from your daughters. And John said, I stopped. I thought and listened again and again and again to the message my mother left. And then I turned back around and I went back to the halfway house and I said, okay, I need help here.
Nice. That is all. Is that a part of your nonprofit Real Victory? Because
yeah,
I saw that. Yeah. I saw how you were, dropping like 50% reductions. I even had to look it up because I didn't even know the word recidivism. Is that how you pronounce it?
Recidivism. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to look it up and I'm like, wow, like that is awesome. Helping like people who are especially repeat offenders in the system stop repeating. That's what like this part was about.
Yeah. 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 I mean, and what we learned, and it's not just offenders. So we partnered with the university. they did 3 random control trials where they took 70 people and 80 people and like 370 people, and they split them into 2 groups, and one went through our process, one went through the normal process. And they tracked them for a year, and then one study tracked them for 3 years. And they found that those who had this kind of support, their recidivism rate, meaning the number of times that they offend again, dropped by 50%, which is significant.
Yeah.
And so we looked at that and we said, so this isn't just, it's the idea that it just takes small nudges at the right time from the right people to help people make good decisions. It doesn't take sending them to a workshop, sending them to a week-long. I mean, that's good. That helps. Those are always motivating, and I don't want to dismiss those at all. But the challenge for coaches and the challenge for organizations is, you meet with someone in a coaching session and they agree to do all of these things, and then you don't see them until the next coaching session.
Right.
In organizations, you send them off to, a 3-day workshop, and then they come back to the organization and there's not much follow-up, and you don't really find out whether or not the workshop had impact.
Yeah.
And so you send them off again, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So what this does is it helps people identify goals that they want, and then it just gives them little tiny nudges at times that they identify are most important. And we found some things that are really key to actually making this work. One is people have to be in control of who they invite to get messages from, of when the calls come, of what their goals are. The minute they lose the idea that someone else is prescribing that, then they go, well, this is their prescription, and if it doesn't work, it's not on me, it's on them.
Right.
So we build this process so that it gives people the opportunity and the ability to be in complete control of their own process. So we took it from working in the criminal justice system, and now coaches can use it for in-between coaching sessions. Coaches can record messages, for example, and just have a library of messages. And then they can, for the people that they coach, those people can invite friends and family to leave messages for them. And then the coach can layer messages on top of that. And then the coach has a way to gather data in between coaching sessions about how the person is doing. We had one coach tell us that when they meet with people in their coaching session, they spend the first 5-10 minutes trying to figure out what it is that they talk about, because they haven't seen them. In this case, they would meet with them once a month, and they haven't seen them for a month. So that they've got to catch up. And when they started using this process, it gave them the ability simply to say, hey, I can see in the last month, you've succeeded here and you've struggled there. Is that what you'd like to talk about today? So all of a sudden it helps them focus in more on what's more important to the individual.
I like that. Because it's like you said, there is that gap. Cause like, even if I'm doing like public speaking, and I can have the most packed out great event, but you don't know what's going to happen after that. You don't know what they're going to implement. You just hope that it kind of sticks with you. But being able to have that communication, that contact, and like you said, especially if they're doing bi-weekly or weekly coaching calls or phone calls, being able to have that space in between doesn't really leave for the, hey, let's catch up, instead of it's like, hey, let's precisely talk about something. So who are the types of companies, consultants, coaches, or who are the people that you normally work with? If they're like listening right now and they wanted to work with you, who are your type of clients?
So our client base is actually very, very diverse. We work with a lot of individual coaches and consultants, and we work with coaching and consulting companies that are from one person, all the way up to dozens of coaches and consultants. We don't do the coaching that they do, but we give them tools that they can use in their coaching practice to help create that in-between coaching session connection, to help create that increased self-awareness. And we help those coaches and consultants brand the materials for them. And then a big part of what we do is we offer our services, they're full service, so that when a coach contracts with us, we don't add work into their schedule. We add the results into their schedule, and our team takes care of all the work. And then we work with small businesses all the way up to large corporations. We've worked in 53 countries in 43 different languages. And then we do a lot of work with the federal government. So the federal government does the surveys that I've talked about, the 360 surveys. That's a staple in leadership development in the federal government. And we're the sole provider for the Office of Personnel Management, which is like the HR arm of the federal government. Right. So we have a very, very diverse client base. But for us, I mean, I started this business as a one person. My dream was always to be an entrepreneur, and I love working with small entrepreneurs, coaches, and consultants to help them build their business. And anything we can do to help that is always very, very rewarding.
Yeah, that's awesome. But first thing I thought about as you were saying, I was like, man, that's got to be good for client retention and client success. You know what I mean? That's one of the big things, like in our world of like internet marketing and things. And even from that to brick and mortars, it's like, how long can you keep, someone on so that they can grow? How can you get more people to say that they had a success going through your program and what you're doing? And I feel like having that as a part of it, whether it is for their clients or their employees, right? Longer retention with employees, better results from their employees. I feel like all of that can happen. So if somebody wanted to reach out to know more about it, how it works, or even just ask you questions because maybe they don't know if they're quite ready for it, how can they reach out to you?
So our website is star360feedback.com, and they can go onto the website and just fill in the contact form, and that will get to me. We've taken the phone coaching process. Real Victory is the nonprofit that we use working in the criminal justice system. We've taken that phone coaching process and also created a commercial version of that. And that is Sprezi, SPREZIE.com. Just a minute here.
I'm going to make sure I put that in the bio for us on the YouTube.
Yeah. So Sprezi is the phone coaching piece. And right now, Sprezi is focusing, we're focusing our website on building our ADHD coaching business to support ADHD coaches.
Ooh, that's me.
Yeah. But the contact information, you can fill in the information on that contact sheet. And again, the interesting thing with Sprezi is, as people experience Sprezi, they come back and they say, ooh, I can use it here. I can use it here. I can use it here. We've had people use it for weight loss. We've had people use it for increasing their athletic capabilities. We had a college football team use it with athletes. So it's one of these tools that has broad application. And in order to just kind of help get into the ADHD market, we focus it in that spot right now. But we'd love to talk to anyone about using it in their coaching practice.
I love that. Well, Bruce, man, I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast with me today. This has been a lot of fun to talk about this. I didn't understand like a lot of those little nuances when it comes to leadership, because I am trying to become a leader. I try to read more books, do more audio books, listen to more people. I'm trying to, grow as an individual. And I like the micros, right? I am always looking for the big thing that I can do, and like the micro decisions that you can make are good. But I'll be remiss before we go. What are you like outside of this? When you're not helping drive these amazing changes for the leaders and CEOs and managers, or even helping people in the criminal system, work through those things. What do you like to do in your off time?
I like to travel. I like to explore new places. I love the outdoors. So mountain biking is a lot of fun. Although we got e-bikes a year ago and I haven't touched my mountain bike since. I live in the mountains, and so I can, in the summer, you go to the ski resorts and you take the chairlift up to the top of the mountain, and then you ride your mountain bike all the way down. And it's great because you only have to pedal a few times. But you have all the thrills of getting the speed and the bumps and the jumps and everything else.
Have you had a favorite place that you've traveled to, or a place that you're looking forward to traveling to?
Oh, wow. That's a really hard one for me. I really enjoy just learning different cultures and different environments. And it's hard. My wife is a beach person, so her choice is always the beach. And I love the beach. We have fallen in love a little bit with Hawaii. So, but I also, for me, it's fun to go to a new culture. We don't go, we typically don't go luxury resorts when we go. We do as much local Airbnb as we can. So we're staying in a neighborhood.
Yes, that's how.
And it creates some funny circumstances. We went to Greece last year and stayed in an apartment and didn't understand the neighborhood that we were in. And we woke up in the morning and there had been a farmer's market that was like 6 blocks long, and our car was stuck right in the middle of the farmer's market with stalls all around it. And it was sort of like, well, we're going to make different plans today because we're not getting that out.
Yeah, I love that aspect. That's the same way I am. I'm staying with the locals. I'm walking to the markets. I'm trying to buy food from the locals and stay away from the grocery stores as much as possible so that I can take it all in. And it's been, oh man, I know what you feel. I love doing that. And it's always good. It's always good. Well, thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you coming on here, dropping some knowledge. And I'm going to make sure I put everything inside of the bio so that people can reach out to you and have the click. But yeah, I even want to talk to you, man. I got some questions for myself after we have.
Great. Love to talk. For me, life is about just making contacts and having fun conversations.
Yeah.
So
it is. But
I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and spend time with you. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I'm glad we got connected. So thank you one more time to Bruce for jumping on here with me today. It has been a pleasure. And thank you all for listening. I know it's a lot of fun to just kind of sit back and listen to me pick the brains of people who are great at what they do, like Bruce, and I appreciate you listening in. And if you have a business where you feel like you're doing something unique or having a great impact, then reach out to me at Tavius@fixmyfeesteam.com. I appreciate you all for listening, and good night.
Good night. Thanks. Thank you very much.